is 13 hours 39 in Guyana and right across the Eastern Caribbean. Welcome down to this your Wednesday edition of the COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist Leonard Gildarie, and of course joining him for the conversation as well is Dr. Yog Mahadeo. If you just joined us, then you're listening to us right here on Culture Radio, 99.1 FM in Demerara and Essequibo, 99.5 FM in Berbice, online at culturenewsonline.com, via your Facebook page and YouTube channel Culture Radio, or for quicker access, download the MyTuner app or the Radio Garden app and simply select Culture Radio. Dr. Mahadeo, Leonard, good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon to you also, Joshua Van Slightman, and we have a packed studio. Dr. Yog Mahadeo is going to be joining myself, Leonard Gildarie, here today, and I want to say good day to all our people right across this beautiful land of ours, and of course, wherever you're joining us from, we have many joyous Guyanese across the region, but also in North America, in Europe. I know that you guys have been up waiting to hear the news, so it is going to be a very critical day in terms of news. Where are we at the moment? In less than 24 hours, we're going to have Chief Elections Officer Kate Lowenfield submit a report to the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, so she could go ahead and make the national declarations, paving the way for Irfan Ali to be sworn in as the country's next president. That is as far as is being reported by the news media, as is being reported by other forum, and as has been requested by the chair of GCOM, Justice Retired Claudette Singh. I want to say welcome to my co-host too, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. It is 107 days since elections were held in Guyana on March the 2nd, Yog. It is coming down to a close at the moment. We are going to be discussing, among other things, a statement that was issued not too long ago by Sir Sridat Ramphal. No stranger to Guyana by birth, a regional diplomat that has his experience in so many other things, including an advisor to the government of Guyana in representing Guyana for its border case against Venezuela at the International World Court. So, Yog, good day to you, sir. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good day to you and good day to all of our viewers and listeners. I'm well, thank you, Leonard.
Very good. And so there's some good news to our people today. My colleagues at Culture Radio as well as Culture News say they're going to donate all the salaries to Dr. Yog Mahadeo for the hard work that he's been going through for the last 107 days. So I think you should be very, very happy with that. They don't have to agree. I think Glenn is going to make the decision. I think there's a lot of smiles on the face in here at Culture Radio. But let's get down to it. Even Raj is looking a little funny. He doesn't like his salary being deducted. So, Yog, we want to get right down into it today. We want to open the lines to have our people call. We want to hear from them. We want to talk less. So we're going to get that out of the way pretty quickly. Of course, I am going to have to ask you to give us a synopsis in a very short while of where we are at the moment, what has happened yesterday, and what is likely to happen tomorrow. In the meantime, the country waits. We are at the home stretch now, according to what has been reported here. So we head straight to the Culture newspaper. It's Wednesday, June the 17th, 2020. And this is what the headlines say in Culture News. Winner must not take all. Carter Center. This is something that you and I and others have been calling for. We've been asking or telling the people that there can't be any winner. We should be looking at this as a learning experience, gather ourselves and move on, and make sure that we strengthen ourselves so this country could really take its place among the top in the Caribbean and around the world when it comes to its people, when it comes to production, when it comes to everything else that has to do with a good life. GCOM chair clears path for Irfan Ali's presidency. That's the main headline. Of worrying note, there's another one. Guyana records 12 more COVID-19 cases. Yog, we'd have to have a discussion on this. 48 more Guyanese headed to home isolation. They would have come in yesterday. The co-founder of Change Guyana, I think this is Nigel Hines. He's complaining of being denied repatriation flights again. He's applied and they've turned him down. I'm not sure. Maybe he feels there's something political in that. GCOM chair, only the court can determine fresh elections. Major development there when it comes to what happens to those thousands and thousands of observation, which the coalition is claiming that they have made in terms of claims for during the recount period. And she is saying you take it and you go to an election petition, you file that, and you put that as part of your case. We cannot, at this point in time, accommodate it. The recount stage here where we have to make a declaration. She's saying to Keith Lowenfield, please go prepare that report of the recount figures, bring it back to me and let me make my declarations. The CEO expected to present final report to Commission by 1 p.m. tomorrow, so it's less than 24 hours away. We could expect Yog tomorrow. We could see a swearing in of Irfan Ali. Let's get right over to you, Yog. You've been paying attention. What is happening?
A lot of things happening, and all is good. Look, you're right. Tomorrow we expect the declaration to be made, and immediately following the declaration or making the announcement, we expect to see the swearing in. Last night in room 592, we did discuss with Mr. Jonas and Captain Jerry Gavaya that it is expected that immediately upon the declaration there should be a swearing in. So you might likely see a swearing in tomorrow, or at the very latest the following day. However, let us just pause for a minute, Leonard, because it is important that we pay heed to what is being expressed from all political circles. I think by and large, all political parties except the APNU AFC have accepted that the PPPC has won these elections and that Irfan Ali should be sworn in as the next president of Ghana. However, notwithstanding the chairman's very clear instruction as of yesterday to the CEO, and notwithstanding this, the GCOM's press releases of yesterday, the APNU AFC as of today, their word still is that the declaration has not been made, and until a declaration is made, they remain in government. So it seems, it would appear as though APNU AFC will want to play this out probably until the last ball is bowled in a losing match, if one were to use a cricket analogy. Why, I don't know. We could all speculate, but speculation is not good at this time. One would have to respect whatever is being said from Mr. Granger and his camp. And given that Mr. Granger has not made any statements, and given what he did 2 days ago to come out and endorse what Harman would have said, it is easy to then assume that Harman's latest statement is within the president's approval of saying that no declaration has been made, and until such a time, then the APNU AFC is not going to remove themselves from office. Now, that being said, though, as you rightly pointed out, there are a lot of things being said by the overseas, not just the observers. We have seen EU make statements. We have seen the private sector made statement and calling on APNU AFC to concede. We have also seen, as I said earlier, the EU observer mission and their report. We have also heard Grenada's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, has said that the PPP has won. It appears that whoever comes out victorious, and it appears that the PPP has won. I think the task now is on the leadership of the PPP, assuming, of course, that President Granger and his team accepts the conclusion, but I don't know if they have much of a choice. So the leaders overseas are certainly keeping their eyes on the Guyana scenario. And Leonard, I want to call on our brothers and sisters all across this country. This is a crucial time. This is a very important time in our history. And whether you are on the PPP side or APNU AFC side, we have to be very mature in what we say in our expressions, in what we plan to do in the coming weeks, months, and years ahead. I certainly hope, Leonard, that the PPP, having spent 5 years in opposition, has learned a serious lesson and will put this country first instead of party first in the immediate months ahead.
Well, we have been saying that Yog, the last couple of weeks, the attention, of course, will not have only been on what is transpiring now, but post swearing in, what happens then, what is next. And of course, this was part of the conversation last evening when we would have had Timothy Jonas and Jerry Govaya. Now, we would have had Jerry Govaya, Captain Jerry Govaya, critical. He's plays a critical role in the private sector, the representation of businesses in Guyana. That a very big body, a critical body, and of course, listening. We have to listen to people like that because they have a big say. And so when he's saying to our people, hey, do not start celebrating yet, let us be sensitive to whatever is happening. The people are hurting, and not only that, we have to look at it on a whole, and I've been saying this over and over, and you too, Yog. At the end of the day, we have not won. There can be no winners in this entire thing. We have to look at it that Guyana must come first. The leadership, Irfan Ali would have to start looking at immediately taking steps to bring the parties together, the churches, the other stakeholders, everybody together, to find ways to bridge that divide, which has really developed into a big rift. There's a big valley there that you can't cross, and we really need to fix it. A lot of people are going to come out and say, no, it's just a few politicians. No, there's hurting a lot of people because they've been told, they've been lied to, maybe in some cases, that the party would have fared in a particular manner, in a particular direction, and they believed it, and so you can't blame them, Yogi. You'd have to blame the leadership. However, it's time to educate the people that this country here, regardless who's in government, we have to get on with our lives. We have to develop. We have to continue working. We have to deal with COVID-19. You know, today I'm so deeply worried. 12 more cases. Region 2, Yog, has recorded its first case. These are things that has been lost in translation when it comes putting over the media to the media in the news. A very big development there. Region 2 would have been putting a lot of systems into play there. Now, if you understand how Region 2 is located, Pomeroon is basically the entrance into that region, Essequibo Coast area. So Pomeroon is where you lead to the Barima Winey area, the Pomeroon River. And if you understand that that is the area where you would get Venezuelans coming from, then you understand a first case like this, how weak that system may have been. We'd have to still get some more information as to whether this case came from the capital city, from elsewhere, or it is a case that is imported into the country. If it is, it would surely spell worrying sign. What is important is that the U.S., according to some of the figures, so we have 8 to 10 regions in Guyana right now, Yog, that has recorded cases of COVID-19. Region 2 with its first case, we have 171 cases so far in Guyana. The U.S., of course, has remained the country with the highest number of cases. I think it's 2.18 million persons tested positive, recovered 680,000 persons, and this is the big part that everybody should be paying attention. This thing is by no means over as yet. 119,000 deaths, and they're projecting it could probably by September touch 200,000 deaths. In Brazil, our next door neighbor here, we're going to continue to drill it into the people's head because people are taking a very cavalier attitude as to what is happening. The bars remain open and people going about the business without wearing the mask, and they're not doing what it takes, you. And so we have to be very careful. We have to protect ourselves. Brazil, 935,000 cases. We would have had 477,000 would have recovered, and I think it's 45,500 persons dead so far. And the communities which have been hard hit has been especially in the indigenous people's community in the border areas and so on. And these are people that has no way, and so there's been mass burials and mass graves that had to create across there. So it's a very, very worrisome situation, especially for Region 9, which borders with Brazil, which people have been crossing the borders to and from Brazil without falling under the eyes of our authorities. They've been sneaking across using satellite phones to evade the authorities there. At least that is what we have been told. As of today, there's been very little word from the COVID-19 task force in terms of some of the mitigating circumstances or measures that they would have been taken to deal with the cases. But not only that, help for people every single day. Yog, yourself and myself have been receiving calls. People are asking us for help. We too media person, but we've been trying to do whatever we can in our little way, and there's only so much that we can do. We will continue to pull out the stops to see whatever help that we can give, but obviously we want the authorities to take charge of this in a very strategic way. So Yog, this morning also something strange happened, and people are saying that maybe it's a blessing, it's a sign if you do believe in such things. The fog, there was a heavy fog that enveloped several parts of the coastline, especially if you go down the East Bank, the Timeri airport. There was a flight, an Omni flight that had to divert, go back to Puerto Rico because it could not land there, and all along Diamond on the East Coast and so on, the fog was there. So it's something that a lot of people would be seeing. You might see it once every couple of years, but it was really, really heavy. And so let us get down straight before I hand it over back to you, Yog, and then we head to the phone lines in a very short while. This statement by Sir Sridhar Ramphal, and I want to take the opportunity very quickly to read it to you with regards to his take as a stakeholders in Guyana's future, because he is an advisor on our border issue controversy with Venezuela, and that case is before the court from this month. And they're arguing jurisdiction of that court in The Hague to listen to the matter, which has been filed by Guyana. So here it goes from Sir Sridhar Ramphal. As one who pleaded that we Guyanese do not descend into a pit of lawlessness. I applaud the chairman of GCAM, Claudette Singh, for elevating the rule of law above all other considerations. The CARICOM report on the recount of the votes on March 2nd general elections more than a milestone in democracy in Guyana. It's a landmark in democratic ethics throughout CARICOM. President Granger emphatically said that CARICOM was the most legitimate interlocutor in the Guyana electoral crisis, and he was right, and so it is. As long as 2001, CARICOM heads of government, including Guyana, stressing that the region has a long-standing tradition of respect for the will of the people expressed through free and fair elections on a regular basis, pledged to work together to maintain and strengthen the institution and processes essential to democratic government. The CARICOM scrutinies have gilded the pledge, and the chairman of CARICOM, in respecting the legalities the report ordained, has married law to democracy. The outcome of the Guyana general election 2020 must be an example not only to Guyana but regionally and worldwide of the strength of law and democracy. Yog, while it's couched there a lot in diplomatic language in keeping with who Sir Sridhar is, the message is very clear. Accept the results, move on. CARICOM and everybody is watching. Have you had a look at that report, and based on what you would have heard there, some thoughts?
Well, certainly, and Leonard, one could put a net over them all. All the reports have indicated one direction, and that is that the results are what they are, and that the winner must be declared expeditiously from these results. Now, we got to be cognizant of the appeals that are being made. So what you said earlier and what I had commented on is that the APNO FC seems to be pointing to the word valid votes. Now, according to the observer reports, the entire election has been validated. We got to remember when we talk about the APNO AFC's concerns, those are concerns based on allegations. Allegations. I've seen a group of persons in a protest this morning, and I'm seeing a lot of so-called virtual placards being posted that fraudulent report results will not be accepted, and this and that and the other. But Leonard, the question that people have to answer: who will determine that those results are either valid or fraudulent? It has to be the court. The court has to take that onus upon itself, after a petition, of course, to make that determination. So we are creating a storm before even going to the courts. And I would like to appeal for good thinking to prevail, that yes, if the courts are to listen to these allegations and find there has been fraud, Leonard, you and I would be the first persons to say, well, let's move on and let's do what we have to do to ensure that the fraud, one, that it doesn't occur again, and two, that people must not enjoy the benefits of fraud. But it is the courts that must determine that. So to those persons who have started that protest, I mean, everybody has a right to protest. Everybody has a right to come up with their own conclusions and translations to what has happened. But ladies and gentlemen, the truth is that I believe some people are being misled. The entire world is seeing what's going on. And please be aware that there are allegations of anomalies. There are allegations of fraud. And a judicial system has to pronounce on that. We, Leonard, neither you or I can make a determination of that. And the chairman of GCOM said clearly the courts will have to determine that, not her. So I don't know why we're building up this now. What we have to let happen is let the swearing in take place, and thereafter let us all vigilantly ensure that the courts deal with this matter with haste, to listen to it and to determine and so move and so pronounce.
And I want to ask you this, Yog, for anybody who would have missed it. There was a letter after making that very critical ruling yesterday afternoon. The chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission, Justice Retired Claudette Singh, would have prepared and dispatched a letter to the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, to deliver his report to her by tomorrow, 1 o'clock, the latest. Now, for the sake of people who would have missed it, what exactly is it that the judge has instructed Keith Lowenfield to do? But we'd have to put that in context. Immediately after making a ruling yesterday, or making a decision yesterday, the GCOM, this is a chairperson of GCOM, GCOM would have gone ahead and issued a statement, I would say, ratifying what the decision or the decisions of GCOM, the commissioners, would have made with regards to on the way forward with those observations and with regards to the declarations. And she would have issued that letter to Keith Lowenfield instructing him what to do. So I want to ask you if you could put your hand on that letter and maybe we could read it to the people, because there seems to be questions being raised. What exactly is she instructing him to do?
Yes. But Leonard, if I may, there needs to be something else that must be said. And I wish to, as a brother and as a friend, I'm reaching out to our Guyanese people. Before even discussing that letter, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are on social media, kindly desist from putting up fake photos of any political person with fake statements. It doesn't do anybody any good. And, I am certainly taking note. Somebody has put up a statement with the president making certain statements And it doesn't do us any good. The president has his outlet that can release his statements. Please do not create or share fake messages from Mr. David Granger or Mr. Irfan Ali or Mr. Bharat Jagdeo or Mr. Cameron Ramja. It doesn't, and it will not do us any good. We're just creating panic by doing such things. Please don't contribute to it. And if you see somebody sharing something, this is not a time to make mockery. This is not a time to make laughter over anybody. Be mature. And if you see somebody share something that is fake, don't share it on your page. It doesn't do us any good. And Leonard, it's almost hurtful to see people putting words on President Granger's mouth or putting word on President-elect Ali's mouth and sharing it and making it into statements. That is not right, and it is not good. We have to move on. Yes, people are hanging on to mere straws. People are hanging on. We are calling it out on this show, Leonard, but we are calling it out based on our investigation, based on talking to legal luminaries, based on talking to people. We are not just doing hearsay here. And let us be responsible. That's my call, Leonard.
No, I agree with you, Yog. Before we move to that critical letter, issued by Justice Singh, I want to echo Yog too. There can be no contemplation, no time. We don't have the time. We have a lot of things to do. This government, the new government that comes into place within a couple of days, and let us hope it could be as early as yesterday. That's just me saying that. That they have a lot of work, Yog, and there's no honeymoon for Irfan Ali when he comes in there. He will be under scrutiny. He will be under the spotlight. There can be no honeymoon. There can be no nothing else. The people need closure on a lot of things, but also we need actions, decisions to be taken on COVID-19, on the reopening of business. Let's say post COVID-19. How long is COVID-19 going to be with us? We need a lot of information with regards to that. We need to know what is happening with Brazil and the likely impact of how that is going to be dealing with us. Do we need to put more army personnel along that border in order to protect our people? So there are many decisions. Of course, people would want to know, but trade, the reopening of business along Regent Street, what happens to farmers, cash crop, what is happening to our children in school, Yog? So many things that we want to know. We're wasting time being a few politicians that we don't do. We have a lot of time to waste. We have a lot of money. We don't have money to waste, so we have to look out. We have to be calling on our politicians to take those decisions. And you know, one of the biggest fears that I have, Yog, and this is what Guyana should be paying attention to. We would want an opposition in there that is very strong, that is going to do the work, that is going to be representing us in the National Assembly. 65 seats. We are not caring at this point in time who's going to take up those seats. What we want them to do is that their laws to be passed, their arguments to be made on so many different things. There's the liberalization on telecoms, which is something that I'm aiming that we should be paying a lot of attention to. We need people to come in to give us cheaper internet. So that is going to open the way, maybe call centers. Plenty things could happen. You imagine this country, instead of having 2 fiber optic cable, that we could have 10, maybe 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. We need the more the merrier, so we could open this thing. There's so many businesses that could be open, but guess what? We have one company that shut us down yesterday because of maybe poor planning, maybe something else, we don't know. But what we did know is that we were shut out. Stabrook was shut out yesterday. I can't say it enough that I find it very coincidental, very suspicious that at the penultimate day when we were expecting to bring the news to the people of Guyana, that would have happened. I'm hoping that they are listening and they could probably have an explanation other than the nonsense that they sent out this morning saying that they were doing some changes to the way that they're doing the billing system. We are not in the mood to take excuses at this point in time. I'm not in the mood. It's been 107 days, Yog. Before that, it would have been more than a year that the people of Guyana would have been waiting for this thing to be over with, and we still to be in the waiting thing. That is big time wasted. More than a year that we sitting down doing absolutely nothing. We're not paying attention to oil. We're not paying attention to what is happening in our back dam. how things are being taken out. We're not paying attention to the Russians who are here with Russell, and they've been digging out our bauxite, and we getting absolutely nothing about it. They sent them 300 workers. I can't remember the last time that we actually talked about those workers. So Yog, lots of work here cut out for finale. We need to move on with it. Get it over with.
Correct. Correct. Certainly, Leonard. Now, coming down to the letter that would have been sent by Justice Claudette Singh. I want to just share this as for your request, Leonard, with our viewers and listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that up to yesterday, there would have been a lot of thoughts that a lot of calls made by APNU AFC that the chairman of GCOM cannot declare these elections. They were pushing that the chairman must annul these elections, meaning she must say these elections were not credible, and so she cannot make a declaration. In fact, the day before, Mr. Vincent Alexander, Commissioner Alexander, was on air saying that he believes the chairman cannot or should not make a declaration. She will make a pronouncement, and he believes in his own view that that pronouncement would be a non-declaration. So yesterday, what would have happened is that GCOM's meeting would have culminated with the chairman making a decision that she is not the High Court, and the Constitution is very clear that any petition, any questions as to the validity of these elections has to go to the court. In addition, she said she will instruct the chief elections officer to prepare a final report of the recount numbers. So you will remember there has been a lot of talk about whether she is going to accept the numbers from the recount process. So that has also been put to rest. She has said and instructed the CEO to use the recount numbers and prepare a final report. So that being said, Leonard, when the meeting ended yesterday, there started another narrative that, oh, well, now we got to wait to see what is her instruction in writing to the CEO, that she promised to put the instructions to the CEO in writing, and we need to see that first and decipher the words she's using. So it is good that not so long after that decision, Madam Justice Retired Claudette Singh did issue her written instructions to the Chief Elections Officer as follows. Pursuant to Article 177 2B of the Constitution and Section 96 of the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 103, you are hereby requested to prepare and submit your report by 1300 hours on 18th June 2020 using the results of the recount for consideration by the Commission.
Is there any ambiguity with that?
There is, in my mind, and we asked Mr. Jonas last night whether there is anything else that could be read into this letter. He said no. In my mind, there is no ambiguity, but I'm seeing and hearing persons saying, well, this means Lowenfield could use the valid votes from the recount, not necessarily the total of the recount. We have to be appreciative that Lowenfield is constrained to using the votes from the recount, not to use the allegations. Leonard, all the votes from the recount are valid votes. The recount did not attempt to count any other ballots than what were in the box the night Mingo declared. The ballots remained the same. There were no more ballots. So the narrative as of yesterday afternoon to now is that Lowenfield has to go and use only the valid votes. I want to remind everyone that the certificate of tabulation that was signed by everyone there, are witnessed by everyone, observed by the observers, it lists the votes per party with the heading valid votes cast for each party list of candidate. So for example, if you look at all of the certificate of tabulations, that certificate heading says valid votes cast for each party or for each list. So Lowenfield is constrained to using the total number of valid votes cast per certificate of tabulation. Let me repeat that. Certificate of tabulation only has the words total number of valid votes cast. So for region 4, that number was 202,077. So he will have to use those. He cannot use anything else. Anything else is hearsay. Any other number is unproven numbers based on allegations. So he will have to use this. Now, between now and tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Leonard, certainly, if APNU AFC is going to want to hold on to the last moment of the last hour of the last day, they will hold on with their narratives. And you know what? For whatever it's worth, the end is near, and you know, let's just wait. Let's just wait it out.
Absolutely, there, Yog. I want to ask you this. Somebody is asking, what do you believe will happen to Claimant Mingo when all this is finished?
Well, there is a private a case in front of the courts for fraud against Mingo and the person who also signed that form with him. So all of those things will have to be taken. And Leonard, it might be easy for this country to say, you know what, the elections are over, let's move on. But I think I would want to suggest that these elections are far from over until the persons who have put us through this nightmare face the court and let the court decide. Because here is why, Leonard, if you are going to have, and I'm sure we will, if you're going to have an elections petition that will challenge the results of these elections, right? You cannot have a fraudulent election without having people who have aided and abetted that fraud. So, as long as there is an elections petition, logic would suggest that you are going to take the perpetrators that created a fraud to court as well. So that's probably a natural justice would suggest that as well. So we'll have to see what happens, but surely I would want to think that Mr. Mingo et al. Would have to face the court. Their day in court is coming.
Absolutely. So we're going to read a couple of texts that we would be receiving. We would have been receiving today to our WhatsApp number 6222222. Within 5 minutes or so, Yog, we are going to go to our phone lines 226-7453, 226-7453. But in the meantime, let me quickly read a couple of texts from our people. Good afternoon. Thanks for appealing to all to stick to civility while on social media. If you will, Yog, point to the level of decency which the PPPC leadership team has maintained throughout these past couple of months. Appeal to all to focus on the legal and decent expectations. And when folks fail to live up to these standards, then offer constructive criticisms. Healing of our nation must commence immediately. Let us take to the high road. And let us go to some other one. While we talk here about some other people, let's talk about the curfew. Hello, I want the new president to bring the Guyana board issue to a close, most important. And I agree with you. This is something as I think President David Granger would have said, it's a monkey in our back. We should get it over with and done. Somebody's asking if he's streaming live now. Yes, we are streaming live. Let me see. Yog.
Well,
yes,
Leonard, let's deal with those two. They're very important. The border issue with Venezuela. Don't forget we have two border issues, right? One with Suriname and the other with Venezuela. So the matter with Venezuela is coming up in front of the International Court by the 30th of this month. I think politics aside and political parties aside, everyone in Guyana is concerned and ought to be concerned about, protecting the integrity of this country and our borders. So no way should we ever lose sight of that goal. We have to ensure that the border issue is kept right up on top of the burner there. And I'm certainly hoping that the case coming up at the end of this month will hopefully start the foundation of putting this thing to bed for once and for all. What is worrying me, and we're going to wait to see what our leadership would say. What's worrying me is that Venezuela does not seem to want to be making an appearance in front of the International Court. And what does it say? Will they then accept a decision? One has to remember, and there's a lot of history here, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm really hoping these elections will go by and we can get on to having discussions like this in room 592 and with Leonard and I, and we can talk about border issues, and we can talk about oil, and we can talk about the other important things. There are so many things to talk about, Leonard. But we must remember that Venezuela is the one that would have reneged on previous settlement of the same border issues. So it is something that we'll continue looking at. There was another question somebody asked, and I wish to respond as follows. I have to say, Leonard, hats off to the PPP leadership, the PPPC leadership. We had Miss Brigadier Mark Phillips here last week. Hats off to the leadership of the PPP. For the past 2 weeks, I believe they have asked their leadership to not meet with the media, to not be talking, because they didn't want to risk anyone speaking with any bit of triumphalism. They just wanted a mature couple of days ahead. And why I say this, because as everyone knows, last night we were supposed to have had Anil Nandlal on room 592. And at the last moment, he too called and said, look, we don't want to say anything that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, or anything. And one has to respect that. And that speaks to a high degree of political maturity, because at these times, Leonard, anything you say can be taken out of context. So I wanted to respond to that text that you read too, from that perspective.
Absolutely, there, Yog. And I did remember when the border issue had come up before Mark Phillips. You remember we interviewed Mark Phillips a couple of days back, and he is a prime ministerial candidate of the People's Progressive Party. He did indicate that it is an important issue. Guyana has a right to defend its border, and this is something that is going to be a priority for the country to ensure that it gets it over with and done. But Yog, there is a statement that's coming out here from the European Union Election Observation Mission, and they are welcoming the report of the CARICOM Observer Team on the electoral, on the recount process. I could quickly read that. It is issued today. The EU Election Observation Mission to Guyana welcomes the CARICOM Observer Team report on 13th of June. The report reflects the findings of the EU or EOM, which in its final report concluded that voting and counting were well managed all over the country, as was the tabulation of results in 9 of Guyana's 10 regions. It highlighted the integrity of the entire electoral process was seriously compromised by the tabulation of the results of Region 4 by senior GCOM officials. The EU or EOM trusts GCOM to expeditiously conclude the electoral process in accordance with the data resulting from the recount as per Gazetted Order number 60 of 2020 and its addendum. And this is common. The statement was issued by Ivan Eborel. And Yog, so it's very, very clear there. Any comments here?
No, it's clear. I mean, look, what has happened, they use a phrase in there that the CARICOM Observer Mission's conclusion matches what they would have seen from the first instance. So I think by and large, the CARICOM Observer report, Leonard, has really, really, really been very frank and open and you know, outspoken. It's to read it. When you read it, you feel ashamed, don't you? You feel embarrassed reading some of the sections of that report to think that our people behave in that manner. And what happens is, you know, whether things are said that creates an everlasting impact. When we say, you know, when we say words to each other, when we insult each other, memories go on and on. And, you know, now you and I are on air and say, you know what, let's put yesterday behind us and let's move on. The truth is, so much has happened in these 106 days, Leonard, that it would take us a lifetime to forget some of the shenanigans. And my concern is that we must not forget. My call is that we must not forget. We must remember, but remember with maturity, not emotionally. Remember and never let this happen again. As voting public, as electorate, we got to. But coming back to the EU observer mission and their report, we got to remember too that, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately or fortunately, these reports, Leonard, form part of the world literature. Every student, every place is going to read and see these reports, and you know, you agonize when you think, what are they thinking about Guyana?
Yes, absolutely, Yog. And don't forget, Yog, we have to start looking at the seats, how they're going to be allocated. Based on what we've seen so far, it's 33, a one-seat majority for the People's Progressive Party. And you know that is something that is really worrisome when you're thinking about what could go wrong. But it is a good thing. The ruling party must know that it barely has the majority of the Guyanese people giving them the nod that they want you in the presidency. And so it may be a good thing. So what you have is 33 for the People's Progressive Party, 31 for the coalition, and then you have to join the parties with one. How do you see would the People's Progressive Party in government be taking this into recognition that it's hanging on by a thread there again?
Well, it's 33-32 again, eh? It's 33-32, and 33 plus 32 is going to make 65. It's 33-31 and 1, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so if, I don't mean this with a jest that I'm actually probably sounding like I'm making, but if there's one person from within the PPP camp that will one day deflect in terms of their decision and join a vote of the opposition that can combine in that same vote with the journalists, the PPP can as well be defeated in Parliament. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what I think has to happen, Leonard, for people to see development in this country, when it comes to economic matters, when it comes to the livelihood of people, it must not be a case where 33 votes are greater than 32. It must be a vote where let the right decision be made. Mm-hmm. Whether it means, you know, you like Charandas knew when he made that vote, that was his last day in Parliament because he was booted out thereafter. That notion we have of seeing somebody crossing the floor as a traitor, you're only a traitor to your code of loyalty, not traitor to a political development of a country. Mind you, though, this discussion is not easy because one has to be mindful of what happened in our history. And I want to remind everyone that in the dark history of Guyana, in the times gone by, colonial days and so forth, and immediately after independence, Leonard, I don't know how many people know this, but one, you must remember that the Cherry Jagan opposition decided to boycott the Burnham's parliament because Burnham would have rigged those elections and given himself certain seats in parliament. What had happened was that one Mr. I'm not going to call his name now, but one gentleman from the PPP's list had walked over, had crossed the floor, and permanently supported the PNC. So it was deemed to be like as if the PNC was getting a PPP's support. And so it was against that disastrous backdrop that they created this piece of legislation that disallowed crossing the floor. If you cross the floor, you will be replaced.
Do we have any indications now at this point in time, Yog, whether the PPP has indicated whether it will contemplate taking Charandas Prasad as part of its government?
Well, Charandas Prasad, he's not on their list, remember? And one has to remember, and Leonard, this is something that the media has to ensure it does. Anybody who enters that parliament, where I'm hoping parliament can be drawn by this weekend, National Assembly, anybody who enters there, remember, they're not supposed to be dual citizens.
But he could be part of any other position within the government.
Well, he could be as a technocrat. He could be an employee of the government. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have to be in the National Assembly to work. And I wish to call on my brothers and sisters in the diaspora. When we say that dual citizenship and so forth, it does not mean that persons who are a citizen, Leonard, if you are a citizen of another country, it doesn't mean you can't help Guyana. You can be employed by the government. You can come and set up business, and you're welcome to do so. And that has to be the attitude of the new government, that if the law says you must be singular in terms of citizenship, then the National Assembly must be just Guyanese without any duality. But that everybody from the diaspora who wants to contribute, whether by offering their services or by investing, then they are, most welcome to do so.
Well, we're the richest country in the entire, maybe leaving out Venezuela with their billions of barrels of oil. We got so much resources here, and while we've been talking over the years, here's a golden opportunity for everybody to really play a role and demand that we really realize the benefits of those capacity that we have, the resources, and we exploit it in a very strategic way. So yes, Yog, I think they should be playing a role, continue agitating from where they are, and even coming back here and investing. Because if you look at what is happening in the US, we have many rich, well-heeled Guyanese over there, and of course all around the world who want to come back here. We have lots of lands here, and of course we have to continuously pay attention. The Guyana Forestry Commission has a tight hold on those forestry lands. Forget byshandlings and the so on that would have happened, but I think largely we've kept it intact, and we have managed to keep our natural resources in check so far. It's about time that maybe we start looking at exploiting it in a very strategic manner that is going to include more Guyanese and not big companies that's coming from abroad. Maybe a conglomerate that is formed with local Guyanese. We'd have to start looking at that, and without seeing every time as politicians what we could get out of it. I think these are serious times. We are going to be paying close attention to every deal that comes up, every agreement that is going to be signed. We are going to be demanding that Irfan Ali hold more press conference as a president when he goes into office, not what have been transpiring in the past. That's something that's going to be totally unacceptable. People need to be told, Yog. So if you're now joining us, it's Elections COVID-19 Watch in less than 24 hours. Keith Lowenfield, the Chief Elections Officer, he's been ordered to submit a report on the recount results, so there could be declarations that would pave the way for the swearing in of Irfan Ali as the new president of Guyana, and of course to the quick formation of a government and eventual convening of the parliament. So Yog, very important couple days ahead of us. All eyes will be on the speed on which the new government is going to hit the ground running to start tackling some of the big issues that are going to be before us. So if you're now joining us also, you could get us on Kite Radio on YouTube, on Facebook, or Kite News online. Right now, our lines are going to be open 226-7453, 226-7453. You could pose your questions to Dr. Yog Mahadeo, myself. We try as best as we can answer it. If not, we're going to try to get the answers for you. And of course, send us those questions to 62222. We have a WhatsApp going on there, so you could WhatsApp us or just text us and let us know what is happening, some of your concerns, and maybe recommendations how we could move this country, lift this country out of where it has fallen, where it has dug itself into a hole. So I think there's a call online already. Yes, there's a call online. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
I hope that we're over and this is it. But to make a few points, one of them is as it relates to the application online for the assistance, it seems to be moving in some pace, whether slow or not, where they're doing follow-up, some people. And so we don't know where it's going there. My question, which I listen up here on that issue, what happens to that process if a government change? Is this a change? Will it change? Secondly, as it relates to COVID-19, today is the 17th. We just had 12 cases yesterday. And at 14 hours 33, we haven't heard anything if curfew is extended. What is going on? Is everything so locked up in politics that we can't get an answer on that? If they had made a statement, I haven't heard about it. And finally, one of the things that our leaders have to do, we're talking about healing our land. We had open season from whenever campaigning started to the 2nd of March. All of the back and forth was supposed to stop then. We've had 106 days of it. It is time for our leaders to cross over to each other. They don't have to agree on everything, but they have to agree on the fact that we need healing, and it starts from at the top. If they start showing brotherhood and acceptance of each other at the top, it will trickle down to the bottom, and somehow somebody needs to get that over to them. Because we cannot go to a court in any part of the world to fight for our sovereignty and our border issues when we are a divided nation, because anybody can capitalize on our divisiveness. So we need to be united and strong. So our leaders need to start with that. I listen for the answer to two questions, the one with the CDC and the other one with COVID-19 out here. Thank you very much.
Yes, with regards, it's right, caller. I think Yog, it has really slipped us, or we didn't address it. Today is supposed to be the day when they would have addressed the issue of the expiry of the curfew time. We have not received the word. We have not been told anything. So at this point in time, we'd have to wait on that thing. I'm not sure if you want to answer the other parts.
Well, Leonard, I mean, it's 6 on one side and half a dozen on the other. The government, the incumbent has created some serious challenges for this country. It knew this date of 1617 was critical. It knew that around then all of these things they had foreseen. Why it set this thing for the 17th boggles the mind. However, we have to deal with it. But I find it hard. It would be hard for Mr. Harman or for the COVID task force to today make any pronouncement. You see, Leonard, they have put themselves in a jam. How can they make a pronouncement that could, or maybe they will, that will bind another government that should be sworn in tomorrow? So this is gamesmanship at its worst, right? So what I'm hoping, look, the country will not expect and should not expect that if Mr. Ali is sworn in tomorrow, that Mr. Harman remains a CEO for COVID Task Force. That will be unacceptable. However, what we can say we expect is that the new government should immediately summon a meeting with the COVID Task Force and see what their recommendations are, what their studies, what their everything is, and immediately, immediately replace a few of them, but immediately issue, the president the ordinance would have to be changed, Leonard. The ordinance specifically named Vola Lawrence and all of these people, Moses Nagamutu and all of them. So the incoming government has some serious challenges with COVID-19. I would want to say, let us use this platform to appeal to people across this country. I would like you to ask Mr. Glenlal, if he can, if he thinks about it, to appeal using the newspapers, and Starbucks should do the same, to let us continue to be vigilant and maintain social distancing and do everything for the next week or next day or two until a new government is sworn in and we can have proper directives as to what's to happen. The other problem you have is, yes, yesterday you were seeing new numbers of COVID. I wish to remind everyone, the new numbers that we would have seen yesterday and day before yesterday with COVID, Leonard, is not new numbers per se. These are people who have had the disease. Here is my problem. They have the disease, they didn't feel well, and they were tested and found to have COVID. Whoever the contact tracing needs to be done now. Whoever they came in contact with, whatever happened, we have to now backtrace and see who else is at risk. You see, I have complained about this in the past, and it remains the truth, Leonard. The government has not been doing the kind of testing it needs to do of the population to really know whether there are new cases, whether it's on the rise, whether it's flatlining, however it is. So there are a lot of problems. We also got to, when we talk COVID, we got to also think about the announcement that the government, this incumbent, would have made about opening the airports and allowing flights to come in, because with either additional flight coming in, you are going to have the risk of immigrant cases. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things we got to keep in mind. I mean, we had a talk with the good people last week that they came in and they are in self-imposed quarantine, self-isolation, and that's good. But the whole way that this COVID has been managed over the past 2-3 weeks begs a lot of questions.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Yog. This is a text coming in from our people. I've got a feeling that APNU trying to hold on because of the oil money. They're so dishonest without the oil. Less more they have the chance to get the oil money. What's your take on this? I'm not sure. I think we've gone past that. There's elections here, but there's many things at stake. The next government, I would tell you, is going to have this big responsibility to take care of our oil, to move this country forward, to maybe get a better deal, to look at what those other plots, those other area concessions given out that's next door to Exxon's, that we would have to get some better deals than that. They were literally given away. And so we have to look back that before we give any license to drill and to start any production, that we have a better deal than what would have come out from Exxon. So it is not going to be easy. But yes, with regards to the caller there are many reasons to want to stay in power by any government, whether it's the PPP, whether it's APNU. There's so many things. People want to do it maybe for legacy. You want to be known as Yog Mahadeo or Gildarie, who would have taken this country to a next level. Others would want it because maybe of the contracts that comes along with it, the concessions, so many things to put empower their people. So we could talk about that. Maybe Yog, it's a fundamental question that that person would have been asking there. Maybe a little your take as to what you think.
Well, the person, the caller has a concern that I think represents the concern of a lot of people in this country and a lot of people overseas. Why is there this strong desire to hold on to power at any cost, at the cost of the goodwill of this country? What is that? And it has to be, people are thinking that it has to be connected to some economic gain. You're right, that time is now past because there is a new government that will be sworn in. Nobody can turn the hands of that clock backwards. And so the new government, as you and I keep saying, has its challenges well cut out for it. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to remember that it's not only this government that signed contracts with our companies. It is the PPP when they were in government prior to 2015 that entered into contracts with some of these oil companies, ExxonMobil, for example. So it will be interesting, Leonard, to see how this new government of the PPP is going to manage the oil sector and what it will do about those contracts, because it is inheriting some of its own doing, as well as inheriting some of what the incumbent has done.
Yes, and so before we go back to the line, let me see if I read one more, maybe one or two more. Dr. Mahadeo, let me see what it says here. Dr. Mahadeo, I love your tone today, very soothing as compared to when your views are being challenged. Ms. Singh is adding to the tension in this country. Why should she ask the police to confirm if people travel or not, and she has the intention of using the information? You claiming you don't have the power to investigate, yet you started the process from the beginning, telling APNU only the court can investigate the claims. If it is mere numerical count, why GCOM took the time to count 123? And APNU looking into nonsense. GCOM misled both parties, waste of taxpayers' money. Some good points here by this person. Yog, any thoughts before we go back to the line?
Yes, I must thank that caller for making that note. Indeed, I think both Leonard and I, we get passionate when we're talking about issues that affect everybody and affect the country. So yes, I admit I sometimes raise my tone and I get very emotional when I see when I see things, when I see people being taken for granted. I mean, it's happening again, right? I'm raising my tone. So so when you see people being taken for granted and we see our country and elections can be stolen, then yeah, you get passionate and your tone kind of raised. But it's time for reconciliation and healing. But Leonard, the caller is also right from the other perspectives that were raised. Look, I want to defend Claudette Singh's, and I did. On day one, Leonard, you and I came out on her side. When she wrote to the Commissioner of Police for the information, I think somebody asked us, why would she do that? And our response, my response, and I stand by it, my response was that the chairman would have to educate herself as to whether the allegations have merit, whether it is something that she would want to spend time and effort on, or whether it is something that she just needs, she needs to educate herself to make a decision. And I think that was done. It was not, I don't believe it was a time-wasting exercise. She sought information and she got the information. And I think unsolicited information that Kaito News provided by rubbishing the Commissioner of Police's list was also very helpful to the process, because she saw that notwithstanding a source, here are challenges to the source, and this thing is not going to be easy. It's not just making a decision on the observation. So I think that served a purpose, Leonard, because it showed, and look, hadn't she written to the Commissioner of Police, and hadn't you guys in Kaito News done your legwork and exposed and rubbished the Commissioner of Police list, this entire country might have been convinced to the other side. But today we remain convinced that all the allegations are exactly that, mere allegations of fraud.
Absolutely.
Mere allegations of fraud.
There's a caller online. Yes, caller, good afternoon. You're on air.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you guys?
Good afternoon, sir. Go ahead, sir.
You know what is fets me about this whole election procedure is to see that these politicians who claim they love the people of this land, we have a COVID-19 and a pandemic all over the world. People are starving. You had a government who spent 40 million in budget about the CD, giving out to people, and they couldn't take 20 or even $10 million and give poor people who does not have things to eat. Do you know how many people are giving their children porridge, tea, breakfast, and dinner? Do you know how many people don't have nothing to give their children, their family? And you have a government fighting for power and claim they love the people in this country. Sometimes when I hear people plight, I can't do nothing. As a normal man, the most I can do is give them a contact person or some way. I saw the ministry putting things up on, you got to go online to apply to get help. Now, how much persons have internet? They're putting full work on the internet. How much persons have internet? Where I'm living, I share my Wi-Fi for the kids. You want to do your schoolwork? Make sure you have parental controls. You can do your schoolwork. What about those who don't have? I don't know what Granger is doing. People have the guts to call this my president. David Granger. You have Harmon. Watch out, these people, a pack of Nimakaram. They have time with the people of this, no time with the people of this country. People, as I said again, people were living in poverty before this crisis. And this come here, a lot of people you can see who in town is a thief, don't commit suicide. The bank is on people's shoulder. The auto dealers on people's shoulder. The landlords on people's shoulder. Courts, people have bills piling up and piling up. GWI called me the other day for water bill. You know, people are starving in this country. No, we're starving, we're in a crisis. Go around and check the share-out hamper in Tiger Bay, Pleasance, BV, Victoria. It's only those few villages that have agriculture and going on in this country, man. The blatantly will show you how they're only for one set of people. What's really going on? How long people will take this from them?
Yes, thank you. Any other points, Carlo?
No, man, that's what I want, you know, if anybody can call in and give it that.
Yes.
You know?
I thank you very much, Carlo. And Yog, I like the fact that he says that he's sharing his internet. We have all to play a role in this country to making lives, our people, our neighbors, the less fortunate a little better. If we have some things that we could help with, let us do it. You don't want to, if somebody is badly in need and they don't have it, they're going to find ways of getting it. So if we could help somebody in the little ways that we can, as people, as citizens, as decent people, it would help to make this world a better place. So I kind of like the message from that caller there. I thank you, sir. You're a good citizen. Yog?
Yes, thank you indeed. And Leonard, I continue. If it's one, well, sorry, let me take back because it's not one, but one of the many grouses that I have personally against the incumbent, Leonard, from day one, you and I have called. I've written a petition and sent it to them. We have asked this government to do something about GPL bills, about the water bills. We have asked this government to sit and negotiate with the telephone companies to give us some ease on internet and telephone calls. Because people can direct whatever little bit of money they have towards food stuff. But zilch, nada, nothing. When you have suddenly somebody woke up and said, let's remove the VAT from electricity. But you know what? Those people in office, I want to remind everybody, they're not paying any electricity bills. So they don't know what's the squeeze people are going through. And what I find extremely disastrous on their part, Leonard, you and I, on this program 100 days ago or so, we insisted and demanded that the government reduce the fuel prices because the world, you remember that? The world fuel prices had come down and we insisted and insisted and insisted day after day, bring down the price at the pumps, bring down the price at the, eventually the price at the pumps came down. But guess what? They didn't reduce electricity bill by the same amount. Imports of fuel for the electricity company would have cost less. Nothing was done. So this government has been guilty of totally ignoring the plight of people, especially during these hard times. And I hate to say this, it saddens the heart to see that notwithstanding all of the cavalier attitude and all of the thing towards people of this country, you're still, as the caller rightly said, you're still prolonging this thing. Oh, we're going to wait for the last minute of the last hour. And we must be kicked out and we must be declared and told leave the office before we leave. Oh, God. You know, my 5-year-old Arya is looking and wondering, what's going on, Daddy? How can they do this, Dad? And I have no explanation for him. The youngsters are being stained for the rest of their lives by these political opportunists, Leonard.
Yes, and you know, Yog, as we're talking, we should be paying attention. The fuel bill, what you buy fuel for, it has been creeping up. I think I can't remember. I could probably give you those figures tomorrow. It has risen back. It has gone up back. That's one. Two, if you go into the post office on any given day or whenever they're paying pensions to those senior citizens, and you talk to some of them and have the stories, what they would tell you, what those little pension or the old age benefits that they're getting, the old age pension you call it, what it means to them and what they're doing with it and how they're eking out a living, how they're staying by families and what it, after working years, how it is that they're getting through each and every month. You're going to hear some stories which is going to break your heart. Which is going to, if you go into Diamond there now, I can't talk about any other places. I'm living in that area there. And you see some of the persons who are asking and the way that they look forward for the little help that you've given to them. It is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. So when you have our leaders, when you have the people in authority standing up there, maybe I saw something I saw yesterday and I wanted to raise it, but I thought about it. But let me put it out there because, I'm not afraid anymore. I used to be very reserved in the way I say things. I always wonder if somebody's feelings is going to be hurt. On radio is a different thing from writing in the newspaper. You could clothe yourself in some kind of protection there. When you're sitting on the radio, it's a different thing. You see people's emotions, you hear it, especially if you're doing calls. And I saw reporters running down to a place because a man made some racist remarks. Rightfully so. We should not be standing by and allow anybody to do that. However, I don't see the same set of reporters taking the same kind of actions in the same passionate manner on other things that is happening. Maybe that we could open our mouth and talk for those little persons, our senior citizens, the single parents and the others who are suffering like that. I don't see the same kind of passion, but they would go after Yog Mahadeo or Gildarie because they dare open the voice against some of the nonsense that has been happening. But guess what? It's not going to change against this government or the next government or the next government that comes. The people's eyes have been opened, and it's about time that we demand more accountability. Not only accountability, but we demand our leaders deliver because they are servants of the people. They're not our bosses. They're the representatives, and they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do in Parliament by making those laws and whatever it is. This is something that we have to be passionate about. Do not sit in your armchair and have a keyboard with your phone and write two things, and that is your role in this country. Get out, write to the newspaper, pick up the phone and call and say, Gildarie, Yog, this is what I'm passionate about. Every single day you and I have been sitting more than 107 days, and we've been hearing a couple of people calling in. The guy from the rice field up in the Barry there, good day to you, sir. And the other security guard who says he's security guard and who's been through so much yet is so very eloquent. They've been saying it and carrying the torch for the rest of the people. Stop talking and stop looking at Yog Mahadeo and Gildarie and the Glen Lals and whoever it is that are opening them out. And you start opening them out too. You see how fast they get the act together because they understand that your vote counts, and we've been having that debate as to how important your vote is. It counts. Your vote is what has been putting them in office, and your vote is going to be determine them getting out or being kicked out of office as well. Very important, Joe. Very important.
Very important, indeed. Very important, and you're right. I think Mahatma Gandhi said it right. Be the change you want to see in the world. And Leonard, I want to add to what you said. We must have zero tolerance for racism. Anybody from any race that wants to peddle racism, we must weed them out, point them to the ERC. Do not share what they're saying. Report them to Facebook, get them taken down. No to racism of any kind. Also, Leonard, I tell you what, to go back a little bit to the issues of the COVID-19, I tell you, look, Leonard, tears came to my eyes. Look, Brother Azar and Brother Imtiaz and quite a few people gave us donations. I remember Brother Azar sent a whole truckload of potatoes and cassava and stuff like that. And Leonard, we went into some of the areas and we were sharing out. And young little children running, coming, grabbing a cassava from you. Forget the thing about manners and so. These are little children. They run up to you. They grab a cassava from you, Leonard. Tears come to my eyes when I see this, man. They break the cassava and they start to eat it in front of you. Our children and our people need help. They are starving while a handful of people are just creaming things with their fancy vehicle and fancy lifestyle, and they want to continue holding on to power. Our children needs attention. My God, I don't know how else we can say it, Leonard, but these people are heartless.
Absolutely, there, Yog, and there's this very moving text that is coming from somebody here now. Let me tell you, let me read it, and we have to take the time to share stories like this because it is the man in the street. It's an ordinary man that is saying this. Good afternoon, guys. I'm hearing you guys. And but is there anything that can change for the afternoon side? Everybody's still scared. I like your show, and I would like for you guys to have ministers every week so people can share issues. The little things like work. I have 6 kids at home at this time, out of work for my husband. I have to start my own little things, and that can't do it all. And I see others can't even feed the small kids. It hurts. I also try to help, but I don't have much. And they sent a picture of some, it looks like mango and lime on the table and some pines, and so that probably the person, if you are indeed doing this, whoever you are, I want to say thank you for that, for doing your own little thing. Somebody would have said it not too long ago, and I think it's appropriate for me to say it at this time. It's the little things that counts. It's the little things that make sense. I know this girl. This is somebody from Diamond. I want to say thank you very much, dear Sapna Muniram. It's from Bellevue, rather. Thank you for doing that, and it's the little things that count. So Yog, yes, I hear you very clearly there, bro. We would have heard. I think Glenn don't want to say it, but like yourself, he told me that he did an excess of 5,000 hampers very quietly. He doesn't want to talk about it, but I have to talk about it because guess what, Yog? Our people, we have strength in each other. It's only if one man stands up, it might not have. But if there's an army behind him, that he speaks for that army, it has so much more relevance and strength in that. And so today, yes, let us be a awakening time for all of us to really take this country forward. We can't allow the government to do everything. We are standing here right now and asking, what can government do? What can COVID do? They have limited resources. The kitty jar is empty, but there's some rich people across this land. There are people that have something that could help in every community that we go to.
But
there
Leonard,
are people like that.
But Leonard, sorry to interject. This is where I normally get very upset. The president was on air and he said they're running low. Funds are limited. I have posted, you and I have spoken about this. I sent a letter to the government. In these COVID times, why should a president take home $1 million salary when 100 children cannot have food to eat? Let's talk about it. And this is my greatest disappointment with the politicians in this country. In this period of time, when children cannot eat, a handful of ministers in a bloated government are still earning fancy salaries for doing nothing. From March 2nd to now, they were voted out. They had no political work to do, none at all. But they were earning millions of dollars in salaries, in maid, in gardening, in all kinds of things. And our children has no food to eat. So the nonsense about them not having money, they damn well have money to feed themselves, but not the rest of the people. Now, I'm sorry to carry on. I apologize again for being angry about that.
Yes.
But look, I have gone. We have gone to the markets. My brother in quarantine, Dr. Mahadeo, has asked people that, when you close off your market stall at the end of the day and the greens hasn't been sold out, give us. We will share it out. And so we are going around. We are going to beg people to give us their leftovers, because the leftovers is not leftover for people who have none.
That's correct.
Right? So now you have to compare that. with people who are using state assets, driving their vehicles, going zip here, zip there, all over the place. And you are complaining about defrauding an elections, man? Oh, and not a word from this president over the past 105 days. Not a word from Mr. Granger about the children who are starving. That is my biggest disappointment of him. Forget these elections, but have a heart, politicians. Have a heart.
Yes, Yog, and here is a text. Former governments have been plagued with very rude heads in key positions. These folks seriously lacked interpersonal skills and manners. In fact, they display their power openly. That type of behavior has led to the demise and incurred the wrath of many voters. How unprofessional is that new wave of political appointees expected to behave? And this is indeed true. Power-hungry set of people that would have been there, took it over. And not only that, we would have seen some very, very racial posts and messages on social media in recent times, and a lot of these are coming from people who live in overseas. They have not been here in the trenches, and they have not been here with the suffering of the people. They have no idea, like how that lady has been talking there. She barely has enough, but yet she's sharing. There's a caller online. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You in the air? Okay, yes, go ahead, caller.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the panel.
Good afternoon.
My thing this afternoon, my little contribution is that first thing I noticed on Facebook, a lot of people are sharing and trying to encourage people to hit the streets and to do certain things in this country. Guyana is beyond that. We as a people, we're beyond that. And I want to rebuke strongly those persons that are pushing that kind of fire. And it is coming from senior people within the coalition, right? And I really want to tell the people of this nation, please, 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 we cannot do that. Don't let's do that to this nation. This nation is developing. We have a long way to go. It doesn't matter who the government is. We need to move on, accept it for what it is, and now come together as a people and build this nation. We need to build this beautiful country of ours. Mashing up things and rioting and these things, where it's going to take us, how the world is going to look at us after that. We are beyond those days. We are way beyond those days. The other thing I would like to talk about is this whole COVID-19 pandemic. I feel it for some people that cannot eat 3 meals a day, sometimes even 2, sometimes even 1. I know what it is. I, as a parent, at one time I picked up my phone and I called the CDC. And I practically feel so embarrassed after I pour out to the person that answered the phone, telling them my present situation. And then I was told, sir, we can't do nothing for you. The government said don't give out no hamper. You need to go online and register. And if you qualify, if you reach the criteria, we can contact you and you can get something. That hurt me as a taxpayer in this country. Then I am watching these guys driving around and still have their security, and they don't have to pay crap. They don't have to put their hand in their pocket for nothing. And people are out of work. Sometimes I sit down and they hear my skin stand up when I study those young ladies that work in those stores in Regent Street that are closed down, and most of them are single parent. I ask myself, how are they making out? And you have people like Simona Brooms and Harmon and them and Valorant and them talking a bunch of crap. And somebody can go knock at the door and say, I need a piece of bread because they don't have time. All they're focusing on is to stay in power. And I don't care who vexed with my statement. I am talking here as a Guyanese. And I just hope and pray that when the new government gets in power, they stick to their manifesto and do what they said they're going to do for this nation.
All
The,
right.
the previous administration take young people in this country for granted. After 2015, they take us for granted. They disrespect young people, and now they're paying the consequences for it, and they doesn't want to accept the reality.
Yes. Thank you
Thanks for
very.
your
Yes.
thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. They call a very impassioned plea and statements there. Yoga, there's a comment here that is coming from one of our viewers, listeners. Good afternoon. It's my humble wish that Madam Chair would make the correct declaration tomorrow, as she indicated, thereby paving the way for the swearing of the People's Progressive Party for all Guyanese. As a people, we've been taken to the lowest level of shame by the administration. The new government has a monumental task ahead. They need to prepare to set priorities, some of which I would like to see action quickly, including the East Bank congestion, the Harbour Bridge, the new Harbour Bridge, and revise COVID-19 strategies and so on. Thank you very much. But back to that caller just now. Yog, we have our people for a very long time. They sat down and they watch people paying attention to what Yog Mahadeo sitting in the government office, or Gildarie sitting in the government office doing with a security guard, which restaurant they're doing. People seeing, people paying attention, and they're judging. And of course, come 2020, going on to 2025, they're going to be paying very close attention to the excesses, maybe what they're doing, the abuse of office, of state resources, and so on. You know, we don't have a problem. We don't expect our leaders to be sitting in office and not being comfortable. But when the country is wanting, when the country has little resources, and you seem to be living the good life or the high life, we have an issue with that, and we're going to be talking about that. Over to you, Yogi.
Correct. Correct. No, you're right. You're right. And, it's all a matter of how much as a people we want to advance or not. Because as you and I remember the interview we had with President-elect Irfan Ali a week ago. And he, look, Leonard, we came hard at him that night. We literally threw the kitchen sink at President-elect Ali that night. And every question we had for him, we asked him about the economy, we asked him about everything under the sun, and he provided what I felt was extremely great answers that, one could look forward to, hope for. And so to the caller's point, look, it is what it is. We have to deal with our situation here, but we got to move on, Leonard. To the previous message that you read, I think it was a message you read. I would like to respond as follows, Leonard. It is true. You and I have spoken about this before. Government ministers, up to the day they are sworn in as ministers, they are people. They are human beings. The moment they become ministers or they own any power, they somehow change. They somehow become, some demigod or something, and they start to talk down to people. But there is a solution, brothers and sisters. Anytime any one of us visits one of these persons in office, and they talk to us like we are way below them, you don't have to take it. You have your own dignity. You don't have to take it. If one of them were to talk to me like that, I will walk out, I will go on the road, and I will stand in a one-man protest. Because you need to treat everybody as your own brother and sister in this country, not as inferior and superior.
Yes, Yoga, thank you very much for that. There's a comment here. Would opportunities be offered to expats? I've been watching all that has been going on in Guyana very closely, and I want to get back to the development of my country. I currently live in Canada. I think the government would have to be paying very close attention. We've always said that the power is in the people, and if our people want to come back home and they want to invest and they want to think, we should assist them. I think there are many ways that we could do that. By so doing, we build this country. We should not be giving it away wholesale to a few people, give them all the benefits that comes along with investments, and then our locals are asking for it, our people are asking for it, not because they live overseas, but they have a part of Guyana in their heart too, and we not facilitating them. So these are issues that are going to become very critical. That is going to be on the table in the coming days, in the coming months. It's going to be issues that would have to be debated. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Something is worrying me a lot. I want to know something. I didn't trust Lowenfield tomorrow to make that program.
Could you lower your volume on your radio, please?
Oh, sure. There's
Yes.
why the music. Can't you go take a bit?
Yes.
There's why. Sorry about that, sir.
Yes.
Yes, and I didn't trust him because he could bring out any declaration to give the chairwoman. And next thing, the president is calling for state of emergency, sir. I don't trust these people. And these people could just hold this country for stay in power. And Lowenfield will hold on to that paper for a couple days more and swear in the government and let the country be like Venezuela. That is like how I see it. That's how I feel as a citizen of this country. They don't want to come out. So I hope and pray that the real president, Dr. Ali, has been sworn in. As soon as she make that declaration towards him, he must be there already and be the president of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear caller. So, in the meantime, Yog, I think, let me see, we could probably get a couple pictures. Good day, gentlemen. On the plight of some pensioners, could you use your voice to encourage adults to take care of the elderly parents? It's not only the government that owes these citizens, the grown children of these pensioners have a responsibility to their parents. I don't think this is a very, very important thing. Many times you hear of children cast aside, not paying attention, putting the parents out on the road. And this is something that we continuously have to pay attention to. Building capacity of the PAMs, looking at our pensions that we give into our people. We are talking oil now, lots of oil, at least maybe 10 to 15 billion barrels there. These are issues that has to be addressed. How do we raise the level that after you've been working years and years that you can look forward to a good retirement, maybe pension, insurance, whatever it is. But we need to start looking into that. But of course, we hear what the person, our viewer listener would have said there. Our children would have to pay attention to the elders, to the parents, and how they're living. And it's a real struggle. I think as people, we should have a heart, and we should do what is the right thing, take our responsibilities very seriously. Yog, on the issue of pensions, how do we solve that dilemma of NIS? NIS is saying that it has a dwindling base of contributors, and it is gonna, while it has money now, on the long term, it's not viable. We also have to look at the absence of people not paying attention. They're looking at taking a lot of cash under the table now in earnings. Next thing you know, the business fall, and then when you go to NIS, you can't get any benefits from that because you've never contributed. It's a style, it's an attitude that we have that, why would we be paying NIS? That's somebody who's working, and then we realize we missed out on a $20,000 to $40,000 every month because we did not pay. And we could probably have monies even paying for a spectacles benefit. If you go take a spectacle, you get part of it back from NIS. We never paid NIS. So it is important that we do the right thing as well. Maybe yoga is something in your head with regards to how do we move forward addressing some of these issues.
Well, there are a lot of issues with things like NIS. Leonard, Guyana has to realize, and Guyanese politicians have to realize, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. How is it that other countries are making their social security systems work and work well? How is it that in some countries people have confidence and they don't try to bypass their contributions to their social security system? So there always going to be a set or a percentage of the population that will not value the benefits that could have been accrued from a social security system. But education is important, as well as confidence of employers and employees in the system. So it is something that the new government will have to sort. I hate to say this, repeat this. They got their work cut out for them, Leonard. It would be very important, very interesting to see who they're going to put to head the NIS board, because NIS has been run down, and run down not only now, but been run down before. What can you expect when you fire 10,000, 15,000 guys, co-workers who are contributing to NIS? What do you expect? How do you expect the NIS contributions to be maintained? Remember, Leonard, if you fire 10,000 people on one side and they are not re-employed in the private sector, that's a permanent hole. So the amount of contributions coming in are going to decrease with each passing day, and the effect of it, going to multiply. It's going to be a multiplying effect. So that is something that they will have to look at. In addition, is of course what and how prudent is NIS in investing its monies, and what kind of returns it's going to get. Certainly, I think we need to, and yes, all private sector and public sector entities need to ensure that they contribute and let employees contribute towards NIS, because everybody benefits from it.
Thank you very much, dear. And if you now join us, elections COVID-19 watch here on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. You could also get us on Kaicho Radio, YouTube, Facebook, or Kaicho News Online. You go on to our website there, and you could be able to click on the icon and be able to get the Kaicho Radio. So we are discussing elections 2020 within hours. Chief Elections Officer Kit Lowenfield, he is supposed to deliver a report on the elections results, the recounts. And that is going to pave the way for Irfan Ali to be sworn in as Guyana's next president. And so that is expected to happen within the next few hours. As to whether the swearing in is going to happen tomorrow, we are waiting a little more word on that. But in the meantime, there's a text coming from somebody here in England. I pray that Jagdeo is not given the post of finance minister. I'm not. This is interesting. Yog Jagdeo is on the list, right? He could, regardless whether he's on the list or not, he could. This is something that's been asked of him as recent, I think, as last week, when they would have visited, the commissioner's office and asked whether he's going to be willing to take up the post within the People's Progressive Party Civic, and he has not ruled it out. So this is going to be interesting. What role does Jagdeo play? Remember, he was president for a very long time, leading up to 2011 there, and very experienced, a former finance minister as well. What role do you think, let's say that Yog Mahadeo had a hand in making that decision, what role do you believe is suitable for Jagdeo in Irfan Ali government?
Leonard, if I were the president of this country, I would want to ensure that whatever and all of the skills of people like Dr. Jagdeo, people like President Jagdeo, must be exploited to its fullest extent. I would hate to think I am president of this country and you have a Pirate Jagdeo there, and you have other people who are experts in their field and have experience with them, and I would leave them idle? Not at all. That would be a waste of my time as president. I certainly hope that President Irfan Ali is going to ensure that he uses to the max whatever skill set, whatever contributions Pirate Jagdeo can make to the success of his government. He would be, something would be wrong with him if he doesn't do that. And by the same token, all the other former presidents who are here and can make a contribution, they've been there, done that. And you must call upon them to help in their advice, in their order. Look, Clifford Reese bangs the IH up right now. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't the government, regardless of what is Reese's political or whatever persuasion, shouldn't they lean on the man's skill and astuteness to help them and to give advice? Ramesh Prasad was in our room 592 recently. Jerry Govai, all of these people, whatever skill they have, regardless of where they stood on the political divide, this new government must ensure that they use, and I say use in a positive connotation, to its maximum, everybody who can help to build this country. The aim is to build a country. The aim is to have a good government and good governance structure.
Absolutely, there, Dr. Yog Mahadeo and ourselves. And so we're going to continue to take some calls here. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Leonard and Dr. Yog.
Yes, sir.
I must say, sometimes I know you all are very frustrated, but I think the whole country is in a frustrated situation at this time. But it brings my mind and attention, both of you Conrad might well know me now, because when Dr. Yog mentioned about the child and the cassava, it touched my heart. It opened my stomach to know that people are hungry in this country and starving. And the politicians up there do not care about the smaller people who are not getting to it. They care about themselves and their family. But you know, in a divine message, the good Lord gives it and the good Lord takes it. I want to say, Leonard, this early just after December, there were a family. I want Dr. Yog to listen to this carefully. I'm a Muslim leader. A family died in my community, a non-Muslim family. A mother at the age of 50 lost one of her legs and was in a wheelchair and had an accident. And the man, because of the family so poor, he took advantage of that family and went on an agreement. When that mother died, that family came to me when I know that family could have afforded to do a small funeral for the mother. But because of the crisis that this country is facing, you could have not done it. And the first time in my life, I would have had the help of an organization, the Central Islamic Organization, making preparation for that funeral. And Leonard, let me say this, Dr. Yog bring back that memory fresh to my heart. I have never drove the horse in my life, and I had to do it that day, took in that death from Jericho to the Central Islamic Organization to prepare and to have a coffin and a funeral and to be buried. That tells us people are not only starving in this country, people are dying and their family cannot even bury them. And I think this country has been wounded, and it is time now for this country to heal. And I'm saying here, I have seen on Facebook pages, a lot of people are talking racist. Comrade, I'm saying to people who are listening, this is not the time for race. Dr. Irfan Ali was elected by the people. The people had spoken on the day of election, and he was elected as the president. And I'm saying to Mr. Granger, in 2015, when he was elected, the PPP walked out of office easily and gave them this country. And it is time now for the PPP to take this country. And I must say quickly, thanks to you and Dr. Yog from the depth of my heart to reaching out to the unfortunate. I have walked this nation with Dr. Irfan Ali, president-elect. He tried to meet out length and breadth to ensure people had food and masks to wear, including you and Dr. Yog, who are doing it. Comrade, God bless you. Let us pray for this nation and let us put this election to our rest and make the prayer to God that this next president will go there. And as I said, I am a party activist, and I will be watching my government on the ground to ensure that the people have a good life that they were promised. God bless you and take care. You and Dr. Yog.
Thank you very much, dear Yog. As always, that caller is right on point, and I like what he's always been saying, which is that although he's an activist for his party, he's going to hold the feet to the fire. Here is a text that is probably in the same line of what we've been speaking about. Yes, the seniors' plight is heartbreaking. The situation with seniors lining up for hours for this measly pension, only be told that they ran out of money and they have to come back. Wow. This is simply ridiculous. Jagdeo promised to increase the pension to 40,000. They have to deliver. The seniors must be treated with more care and respect. I love this gentleman or this lady who would have sent this. Thank you very much, dear. This is something for you to Yog. I can't help myself but smile, but I'm going to read it to you because I'm wicked like that. Mr. Yog, good afternoon to you. You should be given advisor to the president. What will you do?
Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, that there is legislation in place, regulations and legislation in place that requires us to look after our elders, requires us to look after the old people in this country. So I want to refer, sorry, Leonard, I want to refer back to the previous call, the previous message you read. That is the care for the elderly and care for our parents. You know, just like there is the rights of the child,
Yes.
and children you're obliged to look after. You know, there is also right for elderly persons, and there's requisite care. We will get the sections of the regulations and legislation to deal with it and share with everyone. But Leonard, I have been a person who has appreciated all religions. In fact, I think you know this. Every night I am part of a multi-religious prayer session. And every night we do that. We pray together, persons from all religions. And it breaks my heart to know that in this day and age, we can have situations where parents or elderly people are being abandoned, or elderly people are being left aside. And they're left aside by their own children. I mean, unless the parents so want it. I mean, Leonard, my mom, I remember my mom had gotten to the age, she was very agile and moving around and doing everything up to her last day. But she always insisted, I like to be alone. I don't like when you guys live with me. Please visit me every day if you have to, but I like my space. And you have to respect that. But not to the, you know, to our parents, to our youngsters out there, don't abandon our parents. Care for them, because youngsters, with each passing day, you are heading exactly to the age that is called old age.
And it's not an easy thing, Yoga, so we got to pay attention, look at somebody, how they're living, and promise yourself not to do anything that is going to allow yourself to be in that. But we should also take into consideration that we have our parents, and, you know, we have to give them the same love that they've given us. It is imperative that we do that. I think it's even mandatory. Dr. Yog and Mr. Gildarie, I think the new administration should reduce the number of ministries and take a cut in salary. What is your take? Before we head to the line, I'd like to hear you, Yog.
I do know that the Chedi Jagan administration, if you recall many years ago, Chedi Jagan had started something called lean, clean, and mean government structure. And I think he had reduced the government structure of his predecessor, being Desmond Hoy. I think we were all shocked. I, for one, I was shocked when the David Granger administration created an immensely bloated and top-heavy government structure with all the vice presidents and all of those kinds of positions, and immediately they gave themselves increase in salary. Leonard, I would want to think that the new government would have to assess the critical areas that it needs to have ministers and ensure the last thing you want is that areas do not have the bodies that has to manage them. So you got to look at it from that perspective. But at the same time, I would want to think that the Ministry of Citizenship in a country with 700,000 people, I mean, some of these things are ridiculous and are beyond ridiculous. And so I'm confident, or I'm hoping, that the new government will certainly look at a mean, clean, and lean government structure. With regards to their salaries, I would like to put it this way. Whatever you're paying your ministers and whatever you're paying your top officers, there should be full disclosures, Leonard. There should be full disclosures, because you are taking the taxpayers' money to make those payments happen. And so at the very least, there should be full disclosures. There's a problem. I didn't argue too much. I did initially argue, and I did initially express an opinion when they raised the minister's salary. One has to look at salary versus incentive, because if a man is not paid well, in a country with loose systems like Guyana, they're going to pay themselves well, if you see what I mean. Yeah. Because they're on the bottom of the table, deals are uncontrollable. So I would want to say, pay well, disclose to the public, and wipe out the under the table deals. And please, anyone, if you are going to be a contractor in the next government, don't allow anybody to tell you to pay them a percentage or we got to stop these things and move on.
Yeah, in the past there were some ministers who were being described as 10% ministers. But my urge to the new president is to address the internet issues in the West Demra, particularly Canal Number 2. Hundreds of kids cannot attend school from Zoom meetings or stream content only because the average internet speed is under 1 Mbps and not accessible in a lot of areas. Some can't even afford no GT&T, no network, no e-networks. The forgotten communities in Region 3, Canals Number 1 and Canal Number 2. And yes, it is very important. We've been talking about this. We've been talking about GT&T being given continued monopoly and not allowing any others. I think e-networks would have been able to drop a cable here, but it is still being hampered or hamstrung by the fact that GT&T still on paper has that monopoly. But I think this government would have started it, but it has to be a priority, Yog. We have to have a 5, 6, 7 more cables landing into this country, subsea cables, and that has to be done as early as possible. There's nothing stopping this government. GT&T does not have it in their license. It's not catered for, so there's a backdoor to go through with that, and we have to do it. Not doing it is going to do the people a disservice. There's a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. You're in the air, sir.
Yes, sir. Please take note, you and Mr. Leonard and Dr. Young. Let the nation know that we, the citizens of this country, will not let no one walk through our minds with their dirty feet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. And, of course, some warnings there to the new government. Yog,
Well said.
yes. Yog, before we go back to the line again, tomorrow, this evening, we're going to have room 592. It's going to be hours before that key decision, major developments. There's no turning back from there. The president is sworn in. We expect the opposition, whoever the opposition is, to ensure that they field a very strong team in appearing in Parliament, being part of the National Assembly, to represent the people. Whether they like it or not, they have a mandate from the people to give them the full representation to ensure that the spotlight remains on government to deliver on the promises based on the laws that are being passed and whatever else that transpires in the National Assembly. Don't forget, Yog, also there are many critical committees. The Natural Resources Committee, I think, is one of them. The Public Accounts Committee is another. We have to continuously, we would want to have a look at some of the spendings that would have occurred. And so when the Auditor General comes out with his reports, it has to be examined by those parliamentary committees. And so we would want a strong opposition there over the next 5 years to be paying close attention to bring us the media, the stories that are going to come out from that, so we could hold our leaders accountable. And it shouldn't be year after year like what we've been seeing, that they come out and the reports are showing that Yog Mahadeo and Gildarie, as maybe officers within government, has allowed things to pass, and then I'm calling you next year and tell you the same thing. There should be sanctions of people who would have blatantly sidelined systems that are in place so they could allow millions to be paid out. When systems are being sidelined or not being adhered to, millions of dollars are being lost from the state, from the treasury. Mm-hmm. And we have to be very serious about these things. We want a strong opposition that is going to be there to ensure that it does the people's job and represent the people in the way that they've been ordered to do or asked to do by the people who voted for them. Over to you, Yog.
And Leonard, with regards to tonight in room 592, what we are hoping to do, not hoping, what I know we will do tonight, we want to have a discussion with or continue to have a discussion with some of the faces and persons who have made a great contribution to where we are today. As everybody knows, the new parties have certainly stood up in a great way over these elections. And so tonight we need to ask some of them, Leonard. We need to ask Rhonda Lamb. We need to ask Josh Kanhai. We need to ask Carlissa Ifil and Delon Moffett. We want to ask these youngsters, what's next? I mean, the truth is, in terms of numbers, they took a whipping. They took a sound thrashing at the polls. But in terms of their honesty, in terms of the new party's integrity, in terms of their decency, I want to say publicly, these new parties outshone where integrity and decency and all of these good qualities are concerned. They far outshone the PNC, the APNO AFC party, for standing by their word, for putting their sweat, blood, and tears in, for doing what it takes. You know, Leonard, by the end of the election, these new parties knew they did not win, or they did not get a seat in parliament. There was no incentive for them to go through that recount. Yet they did. They did for Guyana. And I want to talk to them. You and I, we want to talk to them to ask, well, how they plan to hold the next government accountable and what are their plans for the future. So tonight, we're going to have Mr. Josh Kanai and Ms. Rhonda Lamb along with Delon. And as you know, Delon has come under some severe attacks on social media for his political views, as well as Carlisa. So we're going to have these four with you and I tonight to have a little chat about the current things and immediate, of course, what they see as the immediate steps ahead for GCOM.
Absolutely, and I think it was pointed out by Timothy Jonas, who people have been pushing to become the next Speaker in the House. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but Timothy Jonas, a couple of these youngsters, as really did Josh Canais, Mark DeFrance, Dr. Mark France, and you had Ash Kissoon, and of course Rhonda Lamb, very bright stars who have emerged. That is one of the biggest stories that would have come out of elections 2020. If there's no good story that could be coming out of it, I think that would be one. That is definitely going to be at the top of the list. That should be a good story. We are seeing some hot hands. If I was the coalition or maybe even the government, we have so many people within the various ministries, but there's some very bright minds on the opposition side. And I think Jonas made a very, very important point last evening, Yog, which is that had the PPP been alone in the recount and the other small parties, the new parties, their representatives not there paying attention to everything, it might have been a different ball game. But they were very vocal. They were hitting like Schumann. Schumann was on the airwaves steady. Jonas on his own, been doing his own thing, and the other younger candidates to you. So it might have been a different ball game. So it is in terms of for the good of this country. If you're looking at it from an analytical point of view, if you're looking at it from a perspective of going forward, it is good that we build in capacity, political capacity, if you will. With these young girls, young boys now. I sorry to be calling them like that, but they have, it is unbelievable the energy that is coming from them. So yes, I'm looking forward this evening from 592 on the way forward, because I expect them to be not disappearing into the woodwork, but be very present as we try to build this country. From the media perspective, we're going to be on the case from day one to ensure that everything that they've promised, even the 100 days, we're going to be paying very close attention. They've made promises to deliver within the first couple of days of their presidency, of their government, of their administration. We're going to have to be paying attention. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. Yes. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air?
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Go right ahead. You're in the air.
What I would like to have some question to ask.
Yes, sir.
Will this program continue when the next government sworn in? And I would think that this program will be good for every Guyanese, so that their genuine issues and problems can be aired. And I have two more questions. Is that why during an election period, normal citizens can reach ministers? These ministers are even coming to us to talk. But when in government and one have a genuine issue, it's hard to get to talk to them. You always hear that they are in a meeting. And my last question is, let's say government start 3 important projects, and these projects will benefit all Guyanese. And before the project is finished, say that government is voted out. Why the next government will not want to complete those projects? For example, we have like the specialty hospital and the Amila project. These projects, I think, would benefited all Guyanese if it had continued. That's my question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear. With regards to the continuation of this program, it's something that Dr. Yog and management of Kaito Radio, we'd have to be discussing. We have some ideas, but obviously we've been hearing a lot of people have been contacting us and asking us to not stop it entirely, but to have it evolve into something else. Maybe that's the direction that we want to go. It's not easy. It's 107 days. It's really been a pleasure. Some days frustrating, some days tears in our eyes. You hear some stories there that are very heartbreaking. It takes a toll on you. But however, we have the forum here, Kaito Radio, and I think it's a wonderful thing. We've built a relationship with you guys. I've heard stories coming from single parents, from mothers, people who've been contacting us after the program. So that in itself tells us that maybe there's a need. But Dr. Yog, I'm not sure if you would want to address that and maybe some other things that the callers would have been saying. But if you become an advisor to the president, I'm not sure how you're going to have time to do this.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, Leonard. Look, I was very outspoken. A lot of people didn't like it. I was very outspoken against what I felt was corruption in the PPP administration leading up to the 2015 elections. And when ACNU AFC came into office, Leonard, I stopped. I gave them their 100 days. I gave them their 100 days to start, because it takes time to settle in. It takes time to start getting. So I gave them their, and I would want to believe that when a new government is sworn in terms of critically assessing them, I would want to give them their 100 days before starting to critically assess or analyze their performance. In terms of listening and creating a voice or creating a platform to bring in everybody's voice and everybody's opinion, I would certainly hope that that can be continued in some way. With regards to the question about the projects, here is the problem. When in 2015, when the PPPC lost government, APNO AFC had campaigned that they would close down the hydroelectric project, and the Amila Falls project and the specialty hospital. So they had to upkeep a campaign promise whether the projects were good or not. And that's unfortunate. I would still hope, and I say this without fear or favor, Leonard, I would hope that if the PPPC government wants to restart a specialty hospital or wants to have an Amila Falls project or similar project, there must be feasibility studies that will be shared publicly. It cannot be a handful of persons that will sit and decide and enter into secret agreements and arrangements to spend this nation's money. It has to be open transparent deals or transparent contracts. Now, I would ask the same caller this following question. Yog Mahadeo, personally, I have detested what I believe is a waste of $1 billion spent on the Ocean View Hotel to convert it into God knows what it is supposed to be. None of us know. I would certainly hope that a new government will do deep soul searching into that project. So not all projects that you inherit will meet the benchmarks of being good for a nation or being a good project. And this is why governments would have to assess. So sometimes, to conclude, Leonard, sometimes some projects get caught in sheer politics, which they ought not to be. And sometimes projects are indeed bad and should be scrapped. I tell you this in closing. All the contracts that were entered into from 1st of October 2020 to now must be investigated, and must be investigated not politically, must be investigated to see whether they are mere paying off of people or they're good for this country. And if they're good for the country, they should be honored.
Absolutely there, Yog. And so this is a message coming straight till out of Los Angeles, California. It's a time to rethink the current proportional representation system and instead vote based on constituencies similar to what we see in Trinidad and relatable to what we have in most Western countries. Dr. Mahadeo made a good point about keeping our elected officials accountable, but most people don't even know who the members of parliament are. I kind of like that, and I rather believe that is indeed so. If you ask anybody, name me 10 parliamentarians, it's probably going to be a hard stretch. This is me saying that, right? This would change that and offer great amount of accountability and hopefully break the two-party dominance. And yoga, this is something that we've been talking about our system of first past the post and so on, maybe head into constituency kind of situation. Maybe even a federal system, we're not sure, whatever it's work, but whatever it is, at the end of the day, we know that what we have here may not be such a good idea. We have to continuously talk about it and move to change it very quickly. It's going to take a lot of work, but we need some bright minds, and we do happen to have those bright minds. Very quickly, Yoga, I think we have a couple calls that we could take in, but anything you want to add there?
Yes, let me just add to the fact that, let me just correct myself. I think I inadvertently said 1st October 2020. I meant 1st October 2019.
Yes,
contracts from then when the government was deemed caretaker government by the CCJ. And on the other note, Leonard, I wish to also say exactly that caller is right. And I certainly support that the political system, the power system in this country must be changed so that, look, if Berbice, for example, or if Demerara, or a region, let's take a region, if Region 4 is contributing more to the national economy, nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Absolutely.
If Region 6 or Region 5, because these are political, the government system has been set up like this. And indeed, we need to take a strong, good look at our the administration of this country and make the necessary change. So people who are coming from a particular area must be voted to the National Assembly based on their working in the area. Don't take Leonard Gildarie out of Diamond and because where you said you were born in Enmore, but you're living in Diamond, you're working in Diamond, you're doing everything there, but because you're loyal to your party, you are representing Enmore in the National Assembly. Those kinds of things we have to change. Whether the big political parties are going to change it is another question, but the people have to continue agitating for such change.
Agitating, that's it, the people's power. Here's a question for you, Yog, very quickly. Can they block the declarations or the swearing in? I think that's a big question on people's mind. We've tried to address this. I think Timothy Jonas would have said something very quickly from you, sir.
No. The short answer should be no. The long answer would be we don't know. We don't know what they're up to or what anybody is up to. The short answer is that the chairman has clearly said that she is not a court and she's not going to get into investigation of the ballots, and so you have to have a basis for blocking the swearing in, right? So that basis was removed. If she said so publicly and said so in her view, that nobody should be able to question that. That basis is removed. On what else would you now block a swearing in? I don't know. And for what reason? I mean, you would have to give the court. The court is not a computer that you just go and say, I want this and this, and the court. The court would have to be convinced that this is the way to go.
Absolutely.
So I see it. I would say no. That's my call at this stage.
Thank you very much. And so we are going to head to the wrap-up stage now. Our apologies, the time has run out on us. Elections COVID-19 watch here on Culture Radio 99.1, 99.5. You could see a replay of this right on Culture Radio on Facebook, or you could go to our YouTube page, Culture Radio, and you could get it there. Or if you want to join us at any point in time, there's an icon there on Culture News Online. Yog, it is within hours. Guyana is going to get ready for the delivery. It has been many twists and turns, 107 days now since the March 2nd elections, and it has been twists and turns all along the way. I think people are beginning to breathe a little easier now. The GCOM chair has made it clear that the objections that are being raised by the coalition with regards to the recount, she's saying, I can't handle those objections. You have to take it to a court via probably an elections petition, and you'd have to deal with it there. As of now, I want to see the recount results so we could go ahead and make a declaration, and hence from there, while she did not say that, there would have to be a swearing of a president, and that president, according to the results of the recount, is going to be Dr. Irfan Ali, the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party, and that's in keeping with the results of the recount that would have been completed, I think, 2 Sundays ago. So, Yog, very critical times, very, very critical couple of hours. This evening, we're going to be back in room 592, and we're going to be fleshing it out. We're going to be talking to some young representatives who would have taken part, I think all of them for the very first time in an elections that has been dotted, but that has been characterized by a lot of feelings, by deep division within our country. It would have broken the records, maybe one of the longest running election process in the entire world. Maybe in the history at any point in time. We don't know. I guess we'd have to box the book. But whatever happens, we want to bring closure to it, because we are also faced with COVID-19 watch, increasing numbers, 12 more cases yesterday. So we have not heard June the 17th, Yog. That's today would have been the day with the...
Let's continue being positive. We got one more day to go. Just one more. I mean, we said that 2 days ago, right? But really now, tomorrow, 13 hours, that report will be presented.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and thank you, people, for joining us wherever you are, would have been joining us from across the country, and of course from all over the place, from as far as Los Angeles, from England, from the USA, from Canada, and across the Caribbean, and right here in Guyana. We love you very much. Have a pleasant rest of the day until we meet you again in room 592, which is going to be hosted by Dr. Yog Mahadeo and myself, Leonard Gildarie. Have a pleasant rest of the day from the crew at Culture Radio here, and from the crew at Culture News. Good afternoon.